Hey YouTube, good morning. Bright morning. I still have a bit of my morning voice. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. Is that okay? So today we've got recommendations. This is going to be probably a series of videos. So I'm going to talk about science fiction. Uh, these are recommendations, so it would be films and books that would be great for the holidays. Or if you haven't seen or read this stuff, you could check it out for yourself or put it on your list. So, first of all, I want to talk about my first exposition to science fiction. And this really cool public TV station called WTTW that was part of my life when I grew up. That was a station that had Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers, so I would watch that as a child. And then something like Face to Face, they would have two guys in suits. The philosophy of the physics of the parabellum is equal to the equilibrium. Like, just boring. And then they would have some stock market show with some oil painting after that, and then maybe they would have an opera. But then they would come back around and blow your mind with Doctor Who. Or like they had 10:30 on Sunday night was always Monty Python. So Channel 11 WTTW was really hit and miss, but when it was on, it was on. And they had a local thing called Wild Chicago. This was a host dressed up in a safari getup with a big wireless mic, and they did a lot of extreme editing and close-ups, like MTV style, weird synthesizer, punk rock kind of soundtrack. And they went to really unique businesses, and like it was just like a freak show. It was a variety show. You never knew what you were going to get. Sometimes it would be a music thing, sometimes it would be far out sci-fi thing, cheesy, corny, everything in between, you know. And the time this is going on, I'm working at I'm assistant manager for an auto body parts place, hoods and fenders. And next door, there's a 16,000 square foot warehouse that they closed out, and for like a year. So this woman starts coming there, and I introduce myself to her, saying, "What's going on? What are you going to be?" Her husband was the finance director for McDonald's in all of South America, so they were loaded. And she was going to put in this California style business that was called R2, reused twice, and it was like they had a truck, they would send it out, you would call them, "Hey, I got all this scrap." So they would come with their truck and load it all up and bring that and then put it in the warehouse. And so the warehouse was full. It was like a super Goodwill, and they had stuff and junk, and then they had like bulk, like lumber and materials, you know. So it was just an insanely cool place. You could spend some time in there. But I suggested to her, "Hey, when you're going to be hiring, let me know. My younger brother is looking for a job, and he would do wonderful." So he got the job, and he was their guy. They had, this woman that ran it. She had an assistant woman, that young lady that helped her in the front, and then my younger brother was the other employee. So he did everything in the back. And it was an awesome job for him. He used to let me know, "Hey, we got this came in," and I would come over there and get it. Well, I recommended to her, I said, "Hey, you could pick up some business and get free advertisement. Why don't we give Wild Chicago a call?" So they worked that out. I think my younger brother actually contacted them, and they came out. I was alerted of this when they were coming. I went there and dressed up and put a cute outfit on my 3-year-old daughter, and made sure her hair was perfect. And we got on camera. We were one of the only people in the store that day that was like alert and punctual. There was like a lot of like old people, like, "I don't know," and they didn't want to talk on camera, and I was all ready for it. I had an Atari 2600 and 3 or 4 cartridges in my cart. It's something, a prop, and so they came around and they actually talked to me twice. And then my little brother got on there, and he was sitting in a steam bath taking his break. So we ended up, me and Bjorn and my daughter Linnea, we got to be on Wild Chicago, which was just awesome. And that's WTTW. That's the station that I first saw Doctor Who when I was a very little kid. A black and white episode with Daleks in it. Or I don't know if it was black and white. Maybe I was just watching a black and white TV back then. But I got scared. Those Daleks really, I had nightmare. So I was a huge sci-fi fan even before that hype with Star Wars came out. And I'll tell you, if I could have a dime for every bad Star Wars thing that I saw, like a rip off of it, like a clone, where they have like guys marching around with like sword, like lightsaber, like some kind of rip off sword thing, and then like the Darth Vader, like Dark Raider or whatever, just like some horrible guy with a cape. Anyway, we're talking about really the opposite end, the cream of the crop. So, the first time I saw 2001 Space Odyssey, real quickly you kind of settle in and realize this is unlike anything I've ever seen. There's no dialogue in the first 20 minutes. There's long panning shots, but like everything kind of lines up with the frame. It's got this beauty and grace to it that's unnatural. And that's why this film stands up. The special effects are incredibly beautiful. It really does look like what you would think it would look like in space, and what the vehicles are all really kind of cool and realistic, I guess I would say. And I just don't see. I see a lot of bad sci-fi. I just don't see that art and that it look like what it would really be like. Up until now, this Ad Astra thing is kick ass. It's so well done, but it mirrors 2001 with this lack of empathy, kind of a tight, quick, hurried up ending, and then there's some real problems. We'll talk about that later, but when I was older, in the 90s, we lived next to a library, and we didn't have cable TV. It was a little bit expensive, so I would go across the street and try to get something for us to watch. They had a lot of foreign films and documentaries, so it wasn't as glamorous as you would think. But I remember they had Apocalypse Now. They had some good classic movies and then some newer weird stuff. But I got a hold of a copy of 2001 Space Odyssey, and I kept renting it because you could recheck it out as long as no one had put a card down for it. So I had that movie for a long time, and I kept watching it because on the back of the book it said this movie requires multiple viewings for you to get the real payoff out of it. Some kind of, whatever it said on the back of that VHS was you need to watch it a bunch of times to get it. And I watched it a bunch of times, and I kept scratching my head even more. What the heck did this monolith with these apes? There's this whole thing with these apes, and then all of a sudden we're in the future. I just didn't get it. I couldn't put two and two together, so I went and got the book. When I went back to renew the VHS, I went and looked in their card catalog system under Arthur C. Clarke, and here's the book. They had two books by him. Childhood's End, which is a Pink Floyd song off of Obscured by Clouds. And that's the thing, there's a weird, the other book was 2001, there's a weird connection between Pink Floyd and Stanley Kubrick. Supposedly, all these rumors about them working together, but there's a feel to how Pink Floyd's music kind of comes at you out of, there's silence first. And they use that as a color of palette. And it barely starts coming in at you and turns into this thing, and then that thing starts swirling around and something else comes in with it, and it's just like an oral sonic dance. It's occult. It's so good. And that's kind of how Kubrick's filming was, so there was always that weird connection. And I Pink Floyd, that was my jam. So I was walking around, Stanley Kubrick's my favorite director, and I'd only seen The Shining 2001. But I got that book and I read it, and I real quickly realized that this is the thing. I got this big disconnect, and I'm like shaking my fist. I'm so angry at that sleeve, that VHS sleeve, that it said that at the bottom. That I kind of discounted the book as being as great as it is, because when you read the book, there's huge, major plot points that are left out. Like the whole thing, the whole linchpin of the entire movie is not in the movie. It's only in the book. And I always thought that, oh, Arthur C. Clarke's this old black and white guy, so that book was around for years and everyone had read it, then he did the movie. No, they were simultaneously released. So he just expected you to see the movie, be like, what the heck? Get the book, read the book, and then go back and see the movie again. So that would double his, fatten up his pocketbook a little more. Brilliant decision. So after reading that, and I'm not going to give it away. I could talk about it, but it'll make the video even longer. And it's not right for me to spoil it. You need to read the book. I don't care if you've never read a book in your life. You can start now. You'll love it. It's a great book. Once you start reading it, it'll go by. Like for me, it was like time slowed down when I read that book, and I loved reading it. It's a great book. That's what happens when you read. So I wanted more. I went and checked out this Childhood's End because there's a Pink Floyd song called Childhood's End. The book has all these great reviews and ratings, and right now I'm going to go over and take a look at what they say as far as 2001: A Space Odyssey, 1968. It was developed concurrently with the movie, published after the release of the film. They wrote the book together, but eventually only Clarke ended up as the official author. So that's 2001: Space Odyssey. Let's take a look at Childhood's End. 1953. So I'm guessing Clarke puts this book out, Kubrick reads it, and then says, "You're the man." Because it's an incredible story. It's really something else. I'm highly recommending you check out this Childhood's End. Story follows the peaceful alien invasion of the Earth by mysterious overlords, whose arrival begins decades of apparent utopia under indirect alien rule at the cost of human identity and culture. So this is a book that I've heard people say they cried when they read it. I've heard people have had nightmares and like it's disturbed them. It's a great book. It's a great book, and they Sci-Fi SYFY did a one-season mini-series type of thing, and I remember watching it. It's got a 6.9 on IMDb and 70 on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's worth checking out. But honestly, I would really recommend you read the book and then check out the TV thing. So yeah, that's WTTW, the public TV, was a huge part of my life, and I ended up getting to be on it, which was really a thrill, and it was cool for our family to get that on VHS and to be able to enjoy it. It's really a shame my older brother wasn't able to get his shit together and come down there and appear on it as well, because it really would have been great. And I don't think they would have known. You know, they would have just filmed them, and he would have gotten on the air. He would have gotten on the air. Trust me on that. Anyway, there's going to be another video here where I talk about 2 more things, recommendations. So look for that video, and peace.